I'm Edwin Ellis, and I'm a research partner affiliated with the University of Kansas Center for Research on Learning. And in this video, we're going to be focusing on the event Inferences DVT, which is part of the differentiated visual tools for strategic instruction in literature that was designed for grades 6 through 8. The DVTs are powerful tools for implementing principles of strategic instruction, in part because we know from research that they're highly robust. They work very well with all types of learners, ranging from those that are high achieving to those with mild cognitive disabilities. They're also discipline specific in that you have different visuals that are designed to target essential understandings in different areas. For example, those associated with literature are different from those associated with teaching science or social studies or history. There are different visuals for specific learning standards. There are also different visuals for different student needs. For an example, some of the visuals are much more complex and advanced for more advanced learners, whereas others are much more basic for those who need something more simple. They're also designed to minimize cognitive load, both for teachers and for students. The Event Inferences DVT is really designed to address specific Common Core standards associated with reading literature. For example, cite textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from text. It's also designed to support expository writing. For an example, write informative and explanatory text to examine or convey complex ideas, concepts, and information clearly and accurately through the effective selection, organization, and analysis of content. So I'm going to unpack this visual to explain how it works, and then we'll look at some instructional tips for using it. We'll start with a story or a chapter from a story, and then what we're going to do is summarize an important event that happened in the story or chapter. We'll identify specific evidence from the text, for example, words the author used to describe part of the event. Then what we'll do is note inferences, in other words, ideas that might also be true about this part of the event, but the author didn't tell. And then we'll explain why we think those inferences might be true. At the bottom of the visual, we're going to identify a so what statement, in other words, what's important to understand about this. So for example, if we're reading the case of the missing marquis, a summary of an important event in that story is that in the beginning of the book, a girl or a woman is searching for someone, and we don't know who she is or who she's looking for. She's in a very dangerous place in London, and she's approached by someone, but she doesn't know if she will be alive in the morning. Specific words that the author used when writing about this event were, it was in the East End of London, the dockside slums of London, it was after dark in August 1888, a stranger all dressed in black was slipping from shadow to shadow, there were broken glass and a lot of disgusting rats, a lot of smells like vinegar and gin and boiled cabbage, sausage, raw sewage, rotting fish, the stench of the river. And she was searching, but she was also alone. So some inferences that might also be true about this part of the event, but the author didn't tell, might be the girl or the woman may have run away from home. Why I think so? Well, she's all alone and she's in a really dangerous part of London at night. Another inference is that she must be from a well-to-do family and a respectable family who probably doesn't know that she's there. Why I think so? Well, her family may have never let her go out by herself like this. And she says that it's unthinkable for a female to go out at night without an escort of a husband, father, or brother. Another inference is that she's probably really afraid and she must love the person that she's looking for a lot in order to go out in such a dangerous place. So why I think this might be good inferences, their comments are, if Lord willing she lives until morning, she can only hope to find the loved one for whom she's searching. At the bottom of the visual, we'll address the so what. What's important to understand about this event? For an example, London during this time period was much like the author described. There was a large gap between the wealthy and the poor. There were horrible conditions in the slums with raw sewage, rats, and crime. Before the lesson, we suggest that you identify key vocabulary terms that students will be encountering when they're reading, and then pre-teach that vocabulary by defining those terms for students. It's also important to review with students what are inferences and what's the difference between an inference and an explicit information, and also preview the Event Inferences DVT with students. In other words, show them the DVT, walk them through the prompts, and kind of explain what the DVT is designed to do and how it's going to be used during the lesson. Now, during the lesson, if this is students' first exposure to this DVT, then it's very important to scaffold the process of using it during instruction. You can do this by focusing on one component of the DVT at a time and then scaffolding the process of formulating responses to note on it. So for example, for just this first section, which is the summary of an important event, it's best to begin by modeling the process of summarizing key ideas. For example, read aloud a passage about an event in the story, and then use think aloud techniques to model summarizing explicit information about the event, and then model taking notes on the DVT. Then in the next section, where we start identifying text evidence, we're going to continue with the I do it, and then we're going to gradually shift into a we do it approach. During the we do it, what we'll do is again read aloud a passage, and then with students identify key phrases. Then for the next section of the story, which is identifying the text evidence or words that author used to describe part of the event, we'll start using we do it tactics, which is basically prompting students and guiding their responses as you together co-construct the ideas to note on the visual. So with students, what we'll do is identify key phrases from the text and then practice creating summary statements and then noting them on the DVT. For the remainder of this section, what we'll do is shift to a y'all do it, which is basically a peer-assisted practice. So students working in pairs will identify additional words or phrases about the event and summarize them and note them on the DVT. So essentially for the first half of this, we're going to be doing it together with students, and the second half we'll have students work in pairs to finish this section of the DVT. For the next two sections on the DVT, where we're forming inferences about the event and then explaining them, what we're going to do is again use I do it and then we do it tactics to model and guide the process of drawing and noting inferences as well as explaining them. So initially I'll model formulating an inference and noting it on the DVT and then explaining it, and then I'll do it again with another inference and explaining it. So initially I'll model formulating an inference about the event and then explaining it, and then with the class as a y'all do it, we'll form an inference together and then note why we think that inference is correct, and then we'll have students work together as a y'all do it type activity to formulate another inference and explain it as well. A powerful thing you can do at the end of the lesson is have students form pairs and then use their notes on the DVT to actually practice verbally explaining the information on it. So for an example, they should practice summarizing the event, identifying the text evidence, and also explaining their inferences that they drew on it. As homework, have students use their DVT notes to write a short expository essay about the event and their inferences about it. If you'd like a free copy of this DVT in the form of a PowerPoint slide or an interactive PDF file, which basically means you can type on these and save them in the folders, these can be found from the free Literature DVTs demo download from our website. If you're interested in purchasing the actual software, then CDs as well as immediate download is also available at our website, makessensestrategies.com. For information about multi-user licenses as well as professional development opportunities, send us an email at visualtools@mss.com.